I'd like to welcome you to the last lecture in our series, Celebration 2014. And I'm very pleased to have representatives of the organized village of Kasan here. And because they did this amazing project that I think is a good model for Southeast and many areas in Alaska. They sought to protect and preserve a wood plank house, a traditional wood plank house.
So you realize your screensaver's on the
moved to
video.
their village from the old Kasan village at the turn of the century. And when I saw it about 5 years ago, it was deteriorating. There were clouds of termites flying around, and the people in the village were very concerned about its future. And the then president of the organized village of Kasan, Richard Peterson, and the then cultural resource manager, Fred Olson, were very concerned and working on that. And they had gotten that house placed on the National Register of Historic Places. And then through their strength and fortitude and basically stick-to-itiveness, they found their way through the maze of preservation granting and protection organizations and got money to preserve it and to restore it. So I'm very pleased to introduce the now president of Tlingit and Haida Central Council and the vice president of the organized village of Kasan here to speak about this project and explain everything they did. Thank you.
Thanks, Chuck. Well, good afternoon. It's an honor to be here. I appreciate Chuck asking us. My name is Chahya Ish. As I say in my deference for the IRS, my name is Richard Peterson. And first I have to step back a little bit, and I appreciate all of Chuck's adulation and admiration for us, but I'm going to do a little bit of correction and kind of clear up some of it. So first of all, I have to acknowledge somebody who's no longer with us that had a lot of his life and heart into the efforts, and that was Louis Thompson. And he's I think he was the only president of Kavilko, or Village Corporation, since its inception. Is that correct? Yeah. Until this last year, when unfortunately we lost him and he passed away. But we do have representation from Kavilko, our Village Corporation, in the room. We have several of the board of directors, Laird Jones, Jeannie Breinig, and I think our new president was around here somewhere. Well, he took his hat off, Louis Jones. And they were the ones who actually got it on the National Historic Preservation recognition and all of that good stuff. And the Village Corporation is the ones who actually own the longhouse. And so I want to be really clear about that, because that was, some cause for concern in the days, who owned and who did that. But as a president of Organized Village of Kasan in the past, it was really my honor to work with Kavilko and Kasan Haida Heritage Foundation and those concerned about the whale house in the restoration efforts. And it was a long process to move forward. And so we had to do a lot of research, grant writing, a relationship building with funders. The tribe was able to do a lot of fundraising efforts, raising awareness, bringing it to people's attention that this was a historical site. It was the only traditional Haida longhouse left in Alaska, and that it's a treasure that needed to be preserved, restored, and saved for the future generations. Growing up in Kasan nearly my entire life, it's I could go out there today and still get goosebumps. It's a very spiritual place. I think it's a place people feel a deep connection to. One that taught me a lot in this process was, as we were doing fundraising efforts in the initial beginning, just to be able to do the grant writing and the work that we needed to do, raise awareness. We did everything. I mean, it was literally grassroots efforts there. I mean, we didn't quite do bake sales, but it was pretty close. We did a lot of, we had t-shirts made, and we sold t-shirts. We raffled a pickup truck. We got pretty creative. And in that effort, I learned that as much as sometimes that we can feel that it's our culture and have that ownership of your culture, you learn that other people can share the appreciation for our culture. Something that I didn't realize I had built in were prejudices against other folks that I honestly didn't know I had. I just kind of naturally assumed some people, not being indigenous to our areas, may not have the passion that I had, or feel that it was a special place. And I can tell you, I'll give an example. One time we were, Fred and I were selling t-shirts at a Christmas bazaar in a very non-native community on our island in Prince of Wales. And I was like, man, what are we even doing here? Nobody will probably even buy anything. And we had people come by and share stories from their lives and times on Prince of Wales, saying, I mean, countless times I heard, whenever our family comes in from the lower 48, we always take them to the whale house. We always go out to the Totems. And I had a family come up, and not to judge a book by its cover, but it was a pretty safe bet that they were pretty low income and didn't have money to spare. And they proved it when the father came up to me and said, you know, I really can't afford it, but I just want to buy one of your onesies for my baby. And I literally, you know, it was $10. And he said, but I believe in this so much, it means so much. That's all I have, but I'm happy to give it. And I was moved to tears. I mean, it was quite an emotional thing for me, and it was a cathartic transformation even in who I am today, because it put into reality for me that our culture, while we have such pride in knowing who we are as Tlinkits, as Haidas, Tsimshians, on, that doesn't mean others don't appreciate who we are and our history and our past, and that they don't see it as a living testament as well. So it's been an amazing process. And I noticed I'm pretty good at talking about what I care about. I'm able to build relationships, convince other people to care. But when I had that cathartic change, whatever it was in me changed, we started building more relationships, bigger relationships, reaching out to foundations like the Rasmussen Foundation, and I was able to talk to them on a level I hadn't been able to before. So it really had been life-altering for me to change kind of my own thinking, and again, to admit that you have built-in prejudices that you don't, you know, even realize you have, you know. Sure, you have friends and neighbors that have different cultural backgrounds and race, and you're like, oh, I'm not prejudiced, they're my friend. But realizing you really can and do have those built in, it's a pretty powerful transformation to make. And it's been an amazing project, because I'll be real candid and direct here. You know, some of our institutions, municipalities, tribal governments, our ANCSA village corporations, sometimes we don't always see eye to eye. Shock, I know. But this project brought us together and it was something that we could actually agree on, that I think it really catapulted our relationships. And we started working on other things, and we're talking about other things. And unfortunately, I've moved on from my village, so moved on might not be the right term. I'm temporarily relocated to Juneau because I've been fortunate and blessed to be elected as the tribal president for Central Council Tlingit and Haida. But my home is always going to be in the village. It's always going to be in Kisan. That's where my heart is. So I'm excited to see what grows from there, because I think our corporation and our tribe and our city government are really starting to do things and grow and do that we've never been able to do in 30, 40 years, for whatever disagreements or barriers that we may not have intentionally put there, but that were there. So this project's been pretty amazing. I would say life-changing for not just myself, but others. I'm going to introduce Fred Olson, and he's one of those. He's a tribal descendant, tribal member of Kisan. His family comes from Kisan. He's a Kavilko Village Corporation shareholder. And he had on many occasions come back to Kisan and worked on projects both with Kavilko and Kisan Haida Heritage Foundation, but also on his own. I think it was a pilgrimage for him to come home to his ancestral lands. And we were actually here in Juneau, funny enough. I think it might have even been right around Celebration. I'm not sure. It was definitely the summertime, but we sat here in Juneau, and he shared his life story with me, and I shared mine, and he was like, yeah, I've always dreamed of going back to Kisan and moving there and living there and doing something. And I said, well, why don't you? You know, I mean, it was really that simple. And Fred was at the time living in New York City, and I would say, hazard a guess that it was a much different life than he has now. But he gave that all up, came to Kisan, and went to work for the tribe as our cultural resources director, and started working very, very directly on those projects. And as you see the video that he's going to talk about and introduce, pretty powerful when you look up there and you see that the folks that originally did this project, you know, are direct ancestors to all those people I introduced: Fred, Jeannie, Laird, Louis. They can look up there and say, that's my family. Those are my, you know, great uncles or grandfathers or whatever, you know, and it's a powerful thing. And it's been an awesome project where we built collaboration and partnerships between the Forest Service, even Sealaska, and other entities. And it's a pretty life-altering, and I can tell you, very an amazing project. Going out there, and I walked out there one day with Fred, and I don't mind sharing some of this. I had gotten pretty unhealthy for a while and hadn't really gone out and done much in quite a few years, and this last year I started to get healthy, and Fred's like, let's go out to the Longhouse. So him and I walked out there, and I hadn't even been out there myself in a couple of years, and I lived right there. And that was a real hard thing, and to see the transformation, I had to stop, and I was choking back tears, because I could picture being a young boy and literally camping there. You know, we'd camp out in this place, this amazing structure, and just I lived my childhood there. And if I don't know if anybody's ever had this moment in life where you literally flash back and you can see your own life and history. I had that moment, and to see the what I had dreamed of for so long actually becoming a reality. Because I lived there in the village, and I had a lot of opportunities to go on and do other things. I said, it's going to be this project, and it's going to get going before I ever leave. And it was what allowed me to have another transformation in my life and be able to move on and do other things. So anyways, Fred Olson, come up and talk about the video project that we got funded through Rasmussen Foundation. And you get to watch a pretty amazing video. Hawa.
Kioskansi Hinu Dikiang. Fred from Kasan, Frederick Otilius Olson Jr. And you have to wear a lot of hats in Kasan, and I'll make my own little correction. I'm on the board of Kavilka also. And city council, tribal council, probably forgetting things. But yeah, I'll try to let the video speak for itself. Like Rick was saying, this has been it's taken thousands of years for us to get to this point. We have the only remaining Haida traditional building standing in the United States in Kasan. And I go out there all the time, and it's just a special place. And it's a weird time now, because sometimes I almost don't want to go there because it's all wrecked, it's all torn apart. And you'll get to see that a little bit in the documentary, and you'll really get to see it at the end. I have a little bit of a so-called PowerPoint presentation that I tried to Friday the 13th today. So it's Friday the 13th and it's a full moon, so what could possibly go wrong? But also, one of the reasons that PowerPoint will be viewable is because of this woman right here, Carrie Sykes, helped put that together. So anyway, I'll hit play and we'll get to watch this. The last traditional Haida building standing in the United States. In 1880, Chief Sunny Hat erected Naay, or the Great House. After Sunny Hat's death, the whale house gradually deteriorated. By the mid to late 30s, only the 4 corner posts, roof beams, and house posts, and a bit of framing were all that was left standing.
James Peel tells the story. There are 3 house totems at the rear of the building. The 2 totems supporting the roof are alike in design and show how we know it by the nickname Whale House. Years ago, there was an animal known as a wasco, which lived both on the land and in the sea. Its abode was in a lake not far from the shore, where it often traveled down the outlet to the sea to catch whales. Belief was that anyone who should kill this animal and wear its skin would have this same power. One day, a native youth set a trap for the animal, and after killing it, put on the skin. Soon, a feeling came over him to go to the sea and catch whales, which he was able to do then and thereafter.
Before reconstructing the whale house, it was necessary to clear away the vegetation and debris of many years' accumulation. December 1938. C.R. Snow. Longshoring. Handling of material can become an expensive part of the cost of any building project. All material for the whale house went the last 100 yards by man muscle. The material of the house was exclusively red cedar, chosen because 1. Its superior durability, 2. Lightness, 3. Easily worked with cutting tools, 4. Splits readily, and 5. Large trees up to 50 inches and more diameter available. The siding was placed vertically. It was secured to the upper and lower members by tongues which fitted into grooves in the members. After having the tongues inserted in the grooves, each piece of the siding is driven into its place. A saw is run between each pair of plank to match the surfaces so they will fit close together. C.R. Snow.
Since the whale house's original restoration, the house has once again steadily deteriorated.
But these house posts were totally exposed for how many years?
30 or something, it
You
sounds
know,
like.
they were totally exposed for a lot of years
Yeah.
before they reconstructed it. All three of them originally.
Okay, I was hoping that was the
And
case.
see, that's the second time that wolf's head was stolen. Because it was only pegged in there with wooden pegs.
Oh,
You know, I think in this day and age, I think there was so much vandalism that went on, you know, and it was left by locals, you know. Of course, we had some curio seekers, you know, and that's probably where that thing, I'm surprised they didn't chisel off the faces of those other. Now they said there was two brothers that carved these, but you notice one is, they're a little different. See, look how far down the.
oh, they're definitely different.
Yeah.
And that's been interesting to me, that this was set in there and they didn't work the deck heights or something. But what do you do?
I know it. It's just the way they did it, you know.
Yeah.
That's yellow cedar look like.
Yeah, I think it is. This guy is particularly rotten. This one actually did better,
Yeah.
maybe because they put a little bit of that creosote
Yeah.
or something on it. But the engineer and I did some drilling below grade, and there's enough wood where these are still okay. About this much rot, you know, you have about 2 or 3 inches of rot down at that.
In the C.R. Snow Journal, there's a list of Haida words for house parts in Naay once. The supportive post is tsunskagut, and the house pit itself is Naay. And as of today, I've not been able to find the correct spelling for this central pole here. The 4 posts supporting the supporting beam are called gots. This is the spelling for it. This is GATS, G-A-A-T-S, accent over the first A.
The gots were placed with their concave sides toward the walls. The 2 gots at the rear usually were ornamentally carved in duplicate, while those at the front of the house, as a rule, were evenly surfaced by adzing. C.R. Snow.
So here's the issue, is you've got this heavy, this is probably yellow cedar, and it's been, the old house post has been set to it, and then they've got these red cedar, you know, shims that are holding that in place. But even if this thing rotted away, this is what's holding the house up. Here's, have you ever seen that Frass stuff? I don't know.
So that's our Frass. Let's just say that's the term. I don't remember if that's it or not,
But it's sawdust, basically.
it's ant and sawdust, yeah. This fine stuff, that's where they're eating the wood. And it was the worst under this. Oh, look, feel this. There's nothing there.
Oh, yeah.
They're just going to town right there.
This is all hollow here.
Yeah.
In Naay once, the frontmost supportive poles, the gots, are not decorated. A plain pole is called skyan. Skyan. The supportive beams being held up by the gots are tsun skugut. Tsun skugut. Tsun skugut. It's the supportive beam being held up by the gots. The Naay, which is the sunken fire pit below street level. This is the spelling, Naay, Naay.
The fire pit was floored with wood except at the center, and constituted the living room. There were steps down from the adusha. In the corners of the fire pit were triangular cupboards where were stored the food utensils. C.R. Snow.
C.R. Snow describes the smoke hole as Naay, but the only translation I could find is Naay Hilas, which would be this. It looks to be something to do with drying the house drying. I couldn't swear to the translation.
Surrounding the square fire pit is a platform varying from 4 to 8 feet in width, known as the adusha. The adusha was floored with split planks, and here the people lived and slept. In the whale house, 31 people, belonging to 11 families and including 3 slaves, nightly stretched themselves on the adusha for rest. The slaves slept closest to the door.
The grant writer will have a tough time acquiring enough money to do a major job. I think it's going to have to be done in phases.
No one had $2 or $3 million sitting around to do this. So there was a strategy then taken to let's identify what the most immediate crises are, to make sure we stabilize the building, and then break the work into phases. And so that we have a strategy that allows us to get in and inventory what's needed, get a carving crew going, but then break the work into a series of logical increments. We're looking at something like 5 or 6 discrete work phases to sort of work around the building.
Phase 1 of the renovation plan is immediate corrective action. The most immediate needs are to protect the building and its interior house posts from further water and insect damage.
Right down this board.
We pulled up floorboards around the house post and noticed to our horror that there was a tremendous amount of insect debris and sawdust below the pole. I haven't even gotten to the gravel yet. Yeah, we'll put some plastic down here when we're done. That'll...
It's like, boy, you got that much sawdust, it's pretty damn hollow.
All this in here is just...
I can hear it.
Even back here. The goal is to get the wood heated to 120 to 130 degrees for at least 30 minutes. That's the standard. And then just measure temperature as we're heating the pole, so we can get an idea of how much heat is actually penetrating. Maybe a smaller hole than this even, more like a small insect hole. Because we'll have some flaps in the plastic, so we can open up a flap, check the thermometer, put the flap back down and tape it back down. So I have 2 or 3 different places to get in. To heat the pole, we needed to contain the heat by creating an airspace around the pole. A wire frame was built around the entire pole, and then that wire frame was wrapped in plastic.
Oh, it's gonna be blowing. But if we got sawdust there, we're gonna have bugs there.
Condensation inside the plastic let us know that we were indeed heating the pole.
The most weathered part of the house is the south or southeast face. So the front of the house where the central door is, where the big totem is out in front. The sill there is getting replaced, I believe, entirely from what we drilled from the samples we got. We started drilling into a lot of the old members, some of them from the original construction, some of them from the 30s. I guess assessing the extent of the damage both by water infiltration and insects. And there are several types of damage. Sometimes it was just surface and the actual wood was, the actual cedar was okay. Some of it, you could tell there was parts where water gushed out once the drill bit went in, and that was areas where the wood in general was all right, but there were small pockets of water that had pooled. And then there were others that you could see where the drill would at first have some resistance and then fall straight through the wood, which are definitely the ones that go.
It's interesting. The building is a combination of some portions that are really, really in tough shape, enough where we're worried about the overall structural integrity of the building. The darn thing could collapse. And so it's imperative to get some of these first steps underway and in place. That said, there are many parts of the building, especially the culturally priceless house posts inside and the giant longitudinal beams that span front to back in Sauna Hat House, are in surprisingly good shape right now. And if we can intercede and get this work done relatively soon, those key pieces of the building can be saved in very, very good shape. So there's something very moving about just the simplicity and honesty and kind of the cultural timelessness of the setting that makes it a real joy to be involved in trying to do some work on keeping this house in place and beautiful.
The Spencer pole was erected by a Kassan woman who had married a photographer from Victoria named Spencer. Spencer is represented on the pole's top. His figure was recarved. Below appears Raven carrying the moon in his mouth, and Blackskin, the strong man, holding the sea lion. East House. This pole was relocated approximately 60 feet behind the Spencer pole at New Kassan. The pole belonged to a man named East, the grandfather of Sunny Hat. A Tlingit craftsman from Cake carved the pole. The flying groundhog stood in front of Chief Skoal's rib house. In 1939, when the pole was moved to New Kassan, the original flying groundhog top was replaced with this eagle top. The Sitting Bear grave marker is a recarved original moved from Old Kassan in 1939. A killer whale grave marker, a brown bear memorial pole showing two different bears, and a large frog pole are copies of originals. The frog pole originally had an eagle's nest on the top.
Syniad edu, di sa kingan, kildat guden, slingas kingan, was gananu dung alkilla, as guys, wat squadis dung kingan dung san. Syniad edu, di sa kingan, kildat guden, slingas kingan, was gananu dung alkilla, as guys, wat squadis dung kingan dung san. Ka, ka, ka.
Okay. Do you want to turn the lights on? Let's see. Maybe I could get Chuck. You can. It's hard to watch every time. I forgot what I was going to say. So that last part's a little abstract. It's not for the casual viewer. You gotta think and look, and maybe you might have to know more than I'm thinking you need to. But what it's showing is there's a totem park created from poles from Old Kasan at New Kasan, and that totem park was created as a part of the first renovation of Naay, which took place between 1938 and 1940 as part of the Civilian Conservation Corps, or CCC project, or that generation stimulus package. Boy, that usually works better. That was a clunker. And I'd like to thank definitely the Rasmussen Foundation and the Alaska Humanities Forum for providing most of the funding for that video. And so what we can do now is move into up to the moment history at Naay. And if you want to hit the arrow, Chuck, please. Thank you. This is our sacred construction site at Naay. And you can see a lot of excitement there. Especially pay attention to the brand new corner posts, and you could actually see all 4 of them have been replaced. As we said in the documentary, we chose to pursue a phased renovation plan because none of us had $2 or $3 million in our accounts, and it seemed it's easier logically to get smaller sums of money. And so you saw the first couple of phases. Phase 1 was to put the tarp on and get rid of the bugs, etc. Phase 2 was a lot of permitting and things like that, but you saw the engineers testing the wood. And that was some of the first moments of wincing for me. Like, when I started, this became real. Like Rick had said, this is kind of a dream to renovate Naay. Well, the dream is very good, but reality can be messy. And so the phase 2 was to sit there and watch the guys drill the wood. When they say the word test the wood, oh, that's neat, they're going to test the wood. But that means drill into your family heirloom, and it's very hard to watch. You want to go to the next one. So phase 3 we thought was going to be doing the front. But this back, what would this be, the northwest corner post, was buckling and was going to probably give way. And so phase 3, the priorities shifted to this corner.
One thing to point out too is in the video that we just watched, that was 2011, that was only 3 years ago. When we actually started work, more walls were coming in. So you saw the front right side wall had blown in from high winds and giving way. By the time we got to work, both sides of the corners were blown in, and then the other was starting to on the other side. And then just to backtrack just one more further on that tarp, may seem really, we put a tarp on there. It was actually a big deal. It was a special ordered engineered tarp that would provide, we were worried it wasn't even going to make it through the winter because it was starting to cave in. And so the engineers had come up with this tarp that, I don't remember how much it cost. It was enormously expensive. Yeah. Took a whole team, and it literally stretched more than this room because it had to cover the whole thing. And it literally gave Naay the chance to make it through another winter just to get to where we were.
Yeah, it really protected the interior house posts and everything, actually, except for the wall. And, it's another nickname, Whale House is a nickname. Another nickname is House with No Nails because it didn't have any nails. And it's tongue and groove construction, and that's what happened is the timbers at the bottom with the groove, they rotted, and so then the planks just fell in and out. And we figured based on those old photos, we might have had 20 years or so before the whole building fell down again. So if you want to go to the next one, Chuck. So they replaced that. And so remember this picture now from the documentary. This is fresh 1940, sweeping up the last bit. And now you'll, you know, some people might not be ready for this one, some of the Kavoko people. When you watch this next picture, go ahead, this is real dramatic. That post has now been moved over, and these elements, this is really it's always been a very interesting building, but it becomes more interesting with history. The building was originally made around 1880 and then restored the first time in 1940. However, this middle totem here, this one predates all of that, and it came from a house that Chief Sunny Hat was heir to in Gasaan, Old Kasan, but he chose to have Naay once built in this place. And so these other posts are from 1880, but that center one is, we don't know the date of it. So Naay once already had this kind of interesting history about it. But now we're adding another layer, because you can see here, you've got undatable, 1880, 1940, and 2014, all in the same building. And so, you know, it's amazing what's going on, because you wouldn't know this, but there's 3 men on our crew. You saw the names, the first renovation, there were 8 in the photo, then there were 12 not pictured. It's 20 of our relatives and fellow Kasan descendants. But in our present day, we have 3 men doing this. And, you know, when we began work, they went to their Longhouse renovation textbook, and then they remembered they didn't have that. And there is no Longhouse architecture class at MIT. And so they have to kind of feel it as they go. And a lot of times very self-consciously, and I think that's why they don't tell me when they're doing a lot of these things, because they don't want to be jinxed. I might take a photo and something might go wrong. So I'm not there taking photos, and it went well. So what happened here, go ahead, Chuck, and hit the insects. In 1940, they added these 2 yellow cedar logs behind the gots in the back, because they're more ornately carved. They're masterpieces of the Haida art form. And so in 1940, they took some pressure off of them with these yellow cedar logs. But even the yellow cedar on this one, the northeast one, was getting eaten.
You know, one thing I don't know if they mentioned, wasn't it like 30 gallons of Frass taken out of there?
Oh yeah, we only showed him once because it bogged down the show, but he took about 5 or 6 of those buckets out of the powder. And sorry if it offended anyone. He tried to bleep it. He said, you know, I don't think he said a bad word, but the one guy said damn, but now I just said it again. Go ahead.
Frass, aka excrement.
Yeah, he said ant and dirt. So this is the top. So they're rebracing, resupporting the Tsansgugget at the top so they can remove this GOTS. And that'll really be something, because then the building will just be supported by that. And that will again be probably unprecedented. We do a lot of unprecedented things out there. Go ahead.
So is that vertical pole inside a hole carved into the horizontal pole in the top? Or is that?
This is resting on this.
So is that
And then the roof is
It's
supported
just
by
like
this.
the-
Go ahead and so then that just shows that the heirloom, the carving there is supported so it won't just fall forward. Go ahead. And then it's supported on the outside. Go ahead. And so this is the replacement yellow cedar log that's staged just a little bit away from Naay once. And next one. It's been cut to fit. So it'll, it's just fun to just underplay this. Like, they'll just put that in there. You know, it's 3 guys are going to just do that. Go ahead.
One thing to point out, all of this,
could you go back?
The adds marks there. So as Fred said, 3 guys are doing this. We're you know, using some power tools, very limited. Those are all hand adds. That crew sits there, and we have a newly constructed carving shed, and they sit there and hand adds every plank, every beam post that goes in there. And I think we're really proud of that fact.
Mm-hmm. And they're really getting good at it. And that's one of the things that I started saying is they're really getting good at this adzing and the construction. They're going to get really good, and then they're going to be done. And then what? And so this is what we'll be talking about is pushing to do another one or another 7, because there is no gun to our collective heads to only have this one. And it is very important. Go ahead.
What?
Just say something.
Okay, so here you can see these are the older ones or the new ones?
Oh, I'm sorry. I caught myself. Okay. What's going on here is I just wanted to show, it's always been important to us. Sorry.
That's right.
It's always been important to us to incorporate as much of the building that's standing now as possible.
Right.
And the reason is, you know, you could say one is just practical or cheaper or something, but that's not the reason. The reason is that our ancestors made these marks on these boards with their hands and hand tools. And, you know, I have relatives who made these marks, and some of us here have relatives who made these marks, and we don't want these to necessarily all become these nice park benches around the world. And
so what Fred and why he's so passionate
could you go
about
back,
that
please?
Is going back to that. We made a very conscious effort talking and consulting with Kavilko and the tribe. Is we could easily just rebuilt the whole thing, you know, but really it would have just been a new house in the old spot, if that makes sense. So through, you know, as Fred said, kind of with wincing, when they were drilling into these pieces and doing these tests, it's kind of like, oh my God, they're drilling into these. But it proved to us, and then as the construction went on, there's nothing wrong with a lot of it. It was really just some of the major support pieces and the roof. The roof was pretty much all gone. But so much of this building was still there. And I think a powerful testament is Paul Volkers, and he's actually the guy who designed the new Sobolov Center that's almost completed. But he said this, and it was really impacted me. He goes, it was a testament to the Haida architecture, because the only reason that it's still so good in the way is the actual way they constructed it. It was different than anywhere else. It wasn't just, you know, there's no nails in it. And it actually, by the way they constructed it, is what preserved it for so long. And that's pretty amazing, if you ask me. You know, and you see an emotion here. It's because this is our history, and we're preserving it and keeping it and incorporating it in what we're doing. You know, like I said, we could have went out there with heavy equipment and pushed it over, you know, or just let it go.
Oh, that's one of the things they kept saying in these early meetings. They had this big plan it was ours, but they wrote a lot of it, the architects, and then they said, demolition, hang on, no, dismantle, how about that word? You know, because we want to, whatever we were going to do, we were going to do it carefully because we wanted to incorporate the wood and use it. But they kept wanting to use the word demolish.
And words are important. You know, demolition invokes destruction, I think. You know, dismantling, you're taking apart. Two very different words to say the same thing, but it also had to represent what we wanted as an outcome. And so, yeah, no demolition. You know, and it's been a carefully, as Fred said, phased out project because, you know, my back pocket's pretty light. I don't know about yours. But one thing is the phase actually evolved during this process because when we found out some of it didn't need to be replaced, and we found other places had more urgent need than we thought when he said that one was buckling. So, you know, we have to just adapt and go with it. And then I don't think we were also going to get we got quite a bit of press coverage because of the Rasmussen grant we got was pretty amazing and epic. And that provided us funding quicker than we thought we'd get too. So all those things kind of factor in.
And that's why, but that's very important. That's why this slide might not look like much, but that's why it's here. It's representing one of the reasons why we're even doing this project in the first place is our ancestors. The real reason we're doing it is because of the future.
So, and I'll be the shameless plug artist here. Go online to www.kasan.org and buy your Save the Whale House shirt now.
Free shipping. Next, please. And this is our crew. On the far left in the maroon sweater is Stormy Hamer. And he's also on our tribal council. I guess his official first name is Glenn, but no one calls him that. They don't know who Glenn Hamer is. Stormy. Harley Holter in the center. I believe he's dancing with Hina Kwan dancers this week and maybe some others. And Eric Hamer on the right is Stormy's son. And those are our carvers, and they're our crew. And the log there is that yellow cedar one that you saw a little bit earlier.
What's also, I think, amazing is when you put into perspective, they had, you know, nearly 20 guys before. Even then, they only hand-packed everything up there. We only have 3 guys, and they're still only hand-packing everything up there. It's pretty astounding, really.
Are the logs coming from local?
Yeah. We've purchased logs from Sealaska, from Alaska Mental Health Trust timber sales. So some from the Forest Service. And Sealaska recently donated 2 logs.
And that's it. You got to go ahead and hit the next one. How and you say up here, Gunos Chish. Thank you.
It's not good as cheese?
No. And then you can hit the next one. Just let it sit there. You can soak that in subliminally. Go ahead.
I was just wondering how far the present village where people are living is from this house.
It's about 2/3 of a mile from the trailhead out to the house.
I think that's a great question too, because you have to walk a trail out there. It's the historic trail. It's pretty amazing because when you walk out there, it's like going through time. Because, I mean, not that our village is real modern anyways. You know, it's a real rural village. But, you know, there's cars and there's things, you know, vehicles and some modern trappings in the village. Once you walk out that trail, you could be back in, you know, when they were doing it in 1938. It's pretty amazing. One of the good things that has come out of this, one of the hard things, I guess, is growing up there and seeing some of the vandalism And they talked to, you heard Louis Thompson on there talk about people stealing parts, and we had ears come out of the bears that never came back, a dorsal fin out of, pretty frustrating to sit there and see that happen. You know, we can't say it will never happen again, but because of the relationship between Kavilko and the organized village of Kasan, we put a tremendous amount of money into the trail, replacing bridges and boardwalks out there. And we have an arrangement now where we're doing some cultural ecotourism out there, and we have some small boats coming and doing, Fred actually and Harley, the guy that was in the middle, they lead so about 30 to 40 tourists every 10 days out there. Pretty low impact, but it provides us funds to sustain that. We got our own sawmill based on funds that were raised from that Kavilko and OVK contributed towards putting in our own sawmill, so we could mill those, not on site, but very close to on site, and then be able to reduce costs tremendously, not having to pay someone to mill our wood, and it also lends to other projects that we want to do, having our own mill. But we're able to kind of provide security almost, because we're out there all the time, and I think the sentiment amongst the organizations is we'll keep that going to sustain and keep it going. And the lesson learned is we don't want to come back in another generation and be like, we need to save the whale house again. No, we need to keep it maintained and keep this process ongoing, so that, you know, if there's planks and things that need to be replaced, they will be. So.
Yep.
Thank you. As soon as all the restoration is complete, are they going to utilize the house for functions, or is it going to be a museum type thing? Or?
I wouldn't say it was going to be a museum, but I think that's an ongoing discussion probably between Kavilko and Kasan, the organized village of Kasan. I know probably about 15 years ago, one of the leaders in the town passed away, and they had a memorial potlatch out there for him. And I think, I'm no longer with the organized village of Kasan, so this is really weird for me. I think in 2016, is that the goal? Is to have our own celebration and canoe journey to Kasan. And in fact, I believe they're talking about, even at a later date, entertaining the big canoe journey that happens and is happening, I think, right now down in the lower 48. And they have over 100 canoes. I believe you're really involved with that, I believe. I think they're talking about wanting to bring it to Kasan. One, because we have a really awesome beach in front of Naay that would make the most epic landing spot. So you have the president, officers of the board here. Can we have a big event there? You know, I would hope to say yes.
Yeah, and I would hope that also it would remain somewhat like it is, you know, because, you know, Kavilko has never really pushed the point that it's their private property, and never gated it, and people can kind of go out there as they want to. And, you know, I go out there quite often, and I'd hate to go out there and have it be locked up, but I know that when a lot of money gets thrown at something, people in these days tend to lock those up. But I hope that doesn't happen, you know, to that extent, because I hope that we can still go out there and enjoy it.
Well, I've had experiences in longhouses, very spiritual experiences. On tribal journey down in the States, as you were talking about, there's several longhouses down there. Some of them are older than others. Some of them are from the 30s and 40s, and they're still utilizing them, and they still maintain them. My first tribal journey was in 2010, and when I went on that journey, smoked probably about 3 or 4 packs of cigarettes a day, and I was still partaking in alcohol abuse, and that journey pretty much changed my whole life. That was my last time I ever drank, my last time I ever smoked it. Pretty much just smoked a cigarette. So there is a lot of power in the canoes themselves, and a lot of power, spiritual power in the longhouses. There's nothing more beautiful than sitting in a longhouse and listening to the fire crackle and everybody singing and drumming. It's a real beautiful experience. I guess that's about all I have. Thank you.
Yeah.
Well, good to see how that's kind of the powerful transformations we're talking about here. That was what I was alluding to earlier, is that relationship that's developed, which I think is just probably the best byproduct, is it's brought us together in Kasan, is hopefully this does give us the opportunity to maintain the building going on in future generations. But one of the cool things I didn't mention, because it's a related, but it's kind of another byproduct, is we built a carving shed in Kasan. And it's pretty amazing, actually. And every Friday, our crew takes off from Naay once, and they work with the school kids every Friday. And we got little kids there carving. Native, non-native, doesn't matter. They're all carving. And I got this blue-eyed, blonde-haired kid there. And I said, Donnie, what are you going to be when you grow up? I'm going to be a master carver. That's the coolest thing anybody's ever said to me. And that's changing lives, and it's making a difference. And they have rules at the carving shed. Obviously no smoking, no alcohol, no all these things. And these kids know if they want to be master carvers, they got to live that kind of lifestyle. That's awesome. We're actually carving canoes in there now. So we're hoping future journeys will have our own traditional carved canoes. So just this project, to me it seems amazing and epic enough just to focus on the house. But all these byproducts of what we're doing may even be greater and have a bigger impact. I don't know. Like I said, it's literally changed my life doing this. I'll let others judge if that's for good or bad, but I definitely have a better understanding of people because of this. And I'd be remiss if I didn't ask Eleanor Haddon to raise her hand or stand up. She just came in. She came in late. She's also one of the Kavoko board of directors. So we got 5 here. We got a quorum.
We have a quorum. We could have a meeting.
So,
we could vote on that canoe thing.
But no, I think it's amazing. I appreciate all your guys' attention to this. And when I say I know it changed my life, I know it changed Fred's life. And I didn't know this guy 6-7 years ago. Heard of each other, but didn't know each other. And now he's one of my closest and dearest friends in this life. So, that's what this has done for us also. And maybe I'll put it on Fred, but it means a lot to me. So, anyways, greatly appreciate everybody's interest coming today. Sealaska Heritage Institute and Chuck Smythe for inviting us and letting us share our story.
Thank you very much.